Next on BYUSN, the BYU football offense reloaded again this year, and offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick says he believes they've upgraded at every position. What does that mean for BYU's offense? And speaking of A-Rod, we go one-on-one with an in-depth look at the BYU offense.
Plus, does men's hoop success hinge on NIL money? And Amin of Fox discusses Cougars in the NFL, and expansion continues, but not in the sport you were hoping.
Oh, what a tease. Welcome to BYU Sports Nation, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Wednesday, August 16th. I am Spencer Linton alongside wedding officiator Jarom.
I've never officiated a wedding, but Max Tooley just got married, and former BYU defensive end / linebacker Devin Kafusi, who's now at that school up north, officiated the wedding, which is kind of cool. Remember, over COVID, Mark Pope actually officiated Colby Lee's wedding, which is pretty cool. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe one day. I don't know. That feels like a lot of responsibility.
That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. Mark seems to relish the spotlight in situations
I feel like Mark would
like
crush
that.
that.
Yes, he's great. I would be interested to see, the Devin Kafusi wedding, right?
The Devin Kafusi wedding. Yeah, Devin can do it. Yeah, he did it.
He did it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Congrats to Max and
very cool.
His wife.
Well, I'm looking forward to when you get to officiate a wedding, brother.
I'm not.
and you get to be in the spotlight.
Ain't nobody asking me to officiate a wedding. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, all rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
I feel like we're stronger at every position group on our team than we were a year ago.
All our running backs are ballers, every single one of us.
Keaton looks really comfortable.
I mean, he's in complete control.
Up front, got some big guys that are really moving things.
The offense, some guys making really big-time plays for us.
What's Trending, presented by Feastbox, donating 10% of every order to Full of Hope, a charitable organization that feeds hungry families. Aaron Roderick, ultimately complimentary of his offense yesterday, going position by position, saying BYU is upgraded at every position group. You just heard it a moment ago in that little music video we played for you. Let's hear from Coach Roderick again, the specific commentary that he offered on his offense yesterday.
We have a good team. We have upgraded at every position on offense this year. Let's say quarterback's, replacing a good player, so that's probably a wash, but I feel like we're stronger at every position group on our team than we were a year ago.
That is quite the comment from a guy who doesn't tend to use hyperbole.
Yes, he does not mince words. He's not used them in vain. He means
not
it
at
when
all.
he says it.
So,
and I
Jarom,
believe him.
If you do believe him, and I do too.
Yeah, but let's walk through it.
Okay, let's go through it.
Yep.
And discuss what an upgraded BYU offense really looks like against this schedule. So let's go position by position and look at it.
Okay, quarterback is TBD. We hope that Keaton Slovis can have a Jaron Hall-like season. Jaron was good, man.
Yeah, and he said it was a wash.
I'd take it. I love it. In terms of the talent and potential, where we sit in this moment on August 16th, sure. But Jaron was stinking good, man. He didn't turn it over, and he was super explosive.
Completed 66% of his passes.
Doesn't turn the ball over. Keaton Slovis is going to find the middle of the field better than Jaron did. I don't know that Keaton's going to take care of the ball in the same way that Jaron did, but hopefully that's what Aaron Roderick offense and coaching hopefully will do. So QB, I hope so. That's how I feel about QB. How about you?
Yeah, I think that BYU fans and certainly Aaron Roderick and the entire coaching staff and all of BYU, Cougar, BYU Sports Nation, they're all hoping that he rediscovers something close to what he put out there his freshman season at USC. And I hear it from every other fan base. Yeah, well, he had 3 NFL receivers. I get it. Keaton Slovis had an incredible receiving core.
Do you know that Ty Detmer had 0 NFL receivers when he won the Heisman? It doesn't require amazing receivers to have a good quarterback year.
He completed over 70% of his passes that freshman year and had some just ridiculous numbers. I'm not asking for the exact ridiculous numbers.
Yeah.
I'm asking for Keaton Slovis, if it is a wash, to do what Jaron Hall did last year, which is complete 66% of your passes and have essentially a 3 or 4 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. Okay? So if he throws 25 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions, or 30 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions, great. Fantastic.
Those are nice numbers.
I think that he is more than capable of doing that. And that, to me, would be a wash at the quarterback position. If he can put up 66% completion percentage and then a 3 or 4 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio.
Look at this fresh-faced Keaton Slovis out of high school in
young
Arizona.
Man. Keaton ready to roll at
Little
USC.
does he know he's going to lose to BYU and be at BYU.
72% completion percentage in
love
2019.
Keaton. Let's go.
Yeah, so we're hoping he discovers close to
Yes,
that.
more on Keaton tomorrow. You'll hear your conversation with Keaton tomorrow. Offensive line. Now, I can't definitively say the starters are better because last year was the #1 ranked pass protection, offensive line, #12 run block. It's hard to say that this year's better. But I am going to say BYU's deeper and has better chemistry. That's what I am going to say.
The offensive line absolutely has better chemistry.
Yes. And is better depth there. Okay? I will say that. How do you feel about
Yeah, if you have better depth, have you not upgraded? I think.
I think that's what Aaron means.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily. I think he is meaning like top-end talent in most cases.
Sure.
Not at receiver. You lose Puka. There's no Puka on this team. But there are more guys among the receivers in terms of depth. You did lose a top-end guy, but BYU feels very good about 5 or 6 guys right now. Last year, I think we felt good about 2 or 3 in that same space.
Aaron feels like Kingsley Suamataia is better than both Brady Christensen and Blake Freeland.
Which is amazing considering those guys are both NFL draft picks.
Third-round NFL draft picks. Sorry,
Yeah.
Blake was in
Brady
the 4th
was-
round, but still.
Yeah.
Like Aaron's straight up says, no, he's better than both of those guys that are now playing in the NFL and in Brady's
Amazing.
case, starting in the NFL. Straight up. And then he referenced a guy like Paul Miley, who's like, he started at Utah. He was the starting center on a Rose Bowl
Simi
team.
Moala started at Utah and he's a backup tackle here right now.
Exactly.
Because he didn't play college football.
And then Caleb Etienne, he just said, look, they're all grateful to be here. They're all re-engaged. You mentioned,
That's awesome.
You mentioned chemistry.
That matters with an O-line.
Yes.
Yeah.
So depth-wise, yeah, I feel like they have upgraded. Like there are more options for BYU. If somebody goes down, I'm not like, oh no!
I felt concerned. Like if BYU has to go to its next 3 at receiver, which you'll hear from Aaron Roderick about how deep he wants that group to be, feel way better about it. Last year, we were like, who is Cody Epps? We didn't know quite yet. And he emerged after Gunner and Puka were quite injured, right? Braden Cosper was a good kind of, backup there. I think BYU continues to get better, which is what you want. Okay, running back. I think this is a major upgrade overall from what BYU had last year. Aiden Robbins, we hope, is better than Christopher Brooks. And then we think Deion Smith is going to be equal to or better than what Lopini Katoa was. And then there's L.J. Martin.
Yep.
Wait until you hear what Aaron Roderick says about L.J. Martin coming up in the next segment. I am surprised that he singled out a true freshman like this. I am surprised. And it's exciting.
If your 4th-string running back ends up being Hinckley Ropati, like BYU fans saw what Hinckley Ropati is capable of in some small measure.
In the screen game, he was
year.
good, but you need more consistency, more diversity of skill.
But if he's your 4th guy,
he's an experienced guy that's capable.
Yeah.
Miles Davis had a 100-yard game last year. Is he even in the top 3? Like, that's awesome. And then tight end, you bring back Isaac Rex. He's healthy. You're automatically better because Isaac Rex is healthy.
Yes.
But the depth there is good. I was also surprised by the backups, 2s and 3s, among the tight ends that Aaron Roderick mentioned as well. There are a few names that are not familiar to most fans. That's coming up as well.
Some JUCO transfers.
Some JUCO and FCS transfers. So
yeah.
On offense, to say that overall they got better, I think you can say that because they went out to the portal and got a lot of guys that are ready products, that are ready to go. They got deeper in certain skill positions that matter. Like, they could have taken a mild step back in running back and had a better run game if the O-line is as good or deeper than last year. Now, will they be as good in the PFF rankings? I don't believe they will be. But I think that they could show quality in a different, quantifiable way.
So you mentioned the wide receiver position, and I feel like it
That's
is
the biggest upgraded position, perhaps?
maybe.
O-line, perhaps, as well,
Okay.
those 2.
Those 2 are in the conversation. You feel like running back might be it as well because of...
I guess I like 3 of those, Spence.
Yeah, right. LJ Martin changes things for BYU.
Having a 3 that you're intrigued by. Last year, we did not have a 3rd-string running back that we were intrigued by.
Well, and not just a number 3 guy that, is like, oh, he's a project. Like,
no.
They feel like if we need to use LJ Martin this year, he's ready.
Yes.
Right now.
Aiden is the workhorse. Deion is super versatile. and then LJ is available.
Yeah, how
Let's
about
go.
that? I mean, but a receiver, like Gunnar Romney was awesome when he could stay on the field. He
just
was
wasn't healthy
awesome.
enough,
It was
unfortunately.
super unfortunate that he just could not get rid of one or of multiple injuries.
He hurts himself in camp like they
Yes.
too,
It just-
and he's never the same. the rest of
It's
the season.
just unfortunate because he was great. He was an explosive big play receiver that could stretch the field, but he couldn't stay on the field. And Braden Cosper had to retire because he too was just like dealing with nagging injuries and nicked
Yes.
up, and he's tired of it.
Yes.
Those guys go away, and you bring in Keelan Marion, who BYU believes will eventually be an NFL receiver.
He's the most sort of exciting prospect on
Okay.
this team. Maybe he and LJ.
So he now is stretching the field with his speed and athleticism. And then Darius Lassiter, who in the words
Great
of Festus
hands,
Take
physical.
says he's got the best hands of anybody on my wide receiver core, including the three guys that we already know about.
and they're better than last year.
So,
I'm getting excited, man. Give me that blue goggles.
okay, Aaron Roderick said it. We just went through it.
Yeah.
What does it mean for BYU football?
It still probably means 7-5.
To be
Just because
determined.
it's going to be hard in the league. But what if BYU wins 8 games and we didn't see it coming? Maybe
Yeah.
today on August 16th, we felt like it might happen.
What does it look like against this schedule? I think it looks like BYU is going to be in every stinking game they play, Jarom.
I hope so.
They're going to be in every game. They're going to
Compete.
lose some close games. They're going to win some close games. They're going to be in every game. That's what it means to me.
Win, and then when you don't, compete. Okay, yesterday, topic 2. Yesterday, point guard Quez Glover committed to Kansas State. We'll see you in league after transferring from Brigham Young University due to NIL money issues. Robbie McCombs, Vanquished Foe, tweeted the following yesterday. Basketball recruiting is different than football recruiting. A player went to a Big 12 school as a bench player.
Bench player.
And will get $200K plus and a guaranteed NIL contract. Can I be a bench player in the Big 12? It's quite the statement. Here's what Mark Pope told the media when asked if NIL was the main contributing factor in Glover leaving BYU. This was Friday.
Yeah, it was all NIL. It was 100% NIL.
Thank you for the direct response. Spencer, is BYU men's basketball success hinging on NIL money? Is that what it is?
I know that it is maybe the number one priority for Mark Pope and his staff to just have more available to offer players, because here's what Mark is looking at. Here's what he's seeing on the surface. All of the other Big 12 teams in basketball are, and again, I don't want to be, to use hyperbole here, but like they all feel like, basically all of them, elite level basketball teams, Jarom. Like the majority
Not
of
all are, but there are a lot of good teams.
the majority of the Big 12 is like NCAA tournament capable, right?
Yes, that's a good phrase.
And BYU's behind the curve a little bit.
Yes,
They need to get on the right side of things.
BYU does not feel NCAA tournament capable to the same degree at the moment.
Like if
because it's the same
BYU,
roster as last year, essentially.
if BYU had more
extent.
NIL money to use and to compete with a $200,000 guaranteed NIL contract for a bench player, then yes, that would certainly help.
Yeah.
Is that the number one thing, though? I still am not ready to like go there and
For
say like
success.
money is number one, and then everything else after that. Coaching, development of players once they're in the program, based on like the schedule you get. Like there are a lot of other factors, but I'm not ready to say that yes, their success hinges on NIL money. Let me be cliche.
It feels like that's what they're saying, though. Like, you give us $2 million to...
It feels like that's priority
roster.
number one. That's
Like-
priority number. Give us more money, and we will deliver you a winner.
AKA get to the tourney and win some games. Like, right now, the standard would be just get to the tourney. This team is not super different from last year. When Quez goes away, you've added Ali Khalifa and Dawson Baker. Those are nice additions from the transfer portal. Does it put you over the hump where we're confident BYU will make the tourney? At the moment, no. This team could certainly develop into that group. But I am troubled by the idea that it's perhaps that simple. I don't know. They're not saying that, but it feels sometimes like it's, okay, if we had $2 million, we could buy a competitive team.
Yeah, and to clarify, you're not allowed to pay the players from a university fund straight up.
It's got to be a separate
It's got to be an entity or a business that's paying the player.
It's Royal Blue Collective. It's Coup Connect. Those are the big two at this point, right? I am concerned, though. This place is unique. It has to have a unique approach to what it does to compete. That mindset and idea fits into what everyone else does. What is the thing that BYU can do to be competitive if it doesn't have that?
Culture.
Can it?
Culture.
Are the LDS players currently not as good as they used to be? Like, BYU's been good at basketball for a long time, being sort of majority of players who grow up liking or maybe wanting to go to BYU at some point. What is it that has sort of changed in this? Oh, the portal, the NIL.
Is it the pressure of the Big 12? Like, we need a different type of player?
I think there are LDS kids that in the past perhaps wanted to go to BYU, Stephen Ashworth, who took money to go to Creighton. You're going to lose those guys too. So I'm not naive. I don't think every LDS kid wants to come to BYU and will take like no NIL money to do it. But I am concerned by the idea that if you don't have that money, that maybe you don't compete. It's like, aren't there other ways of doing this perhaps? And Mark, I think, is looking at it going, the pressure, I agree with you, the pressure of the Big 12 is very stressful right now, and the ability to gather a roster that you can say is athletic enough, skilled enough to compete. I know it's not the old whack. I know that. But I am concerned by this idea because then it's on the fan base to produce the roster. It's not on the coaches at this point as much.
It's on donations.
It's on the donations. So it is, we want BYU men's basketball to compete. BYU men's basketball will compete this year. But to get to the level that Mark Pope is talking about, it requires more, is what he is saying.
Yeah. Maybe it is as simple as being able to go to a player and say, we'll match what Creighton is going to give you. We'll match what Kansas State is going to give you. Stay here. We'll match what Iowa State's going to give you or what Kansas is going to give you. Maybe it is as simple as that for a few players.
Because Big 12.
Yes,
it's
because of the Big 12, to keep those guys in Provo. But I'm with you. Like, I like the idea that BYU is still the front runner in getting the top tier members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to come to BYU and be the guys in the culture that they grew up in.
Perhaps with less NIL money because they love BYU that much.
Yeah. Like, where's Keaton Slovis? Where's the Keaton Slovis?
But can BYU up the ante? And why is it not as public in football?
I don't know.
These are questions.
Fair questions.
Yeah.
There are a lot of my thing is there are a lot of teams that have a lot of money, Jarom. A lot of programs that have a lot of money that still can't win.
That aren't as good as BYU.
Yes.
So BYU's doing a good job. They just want to get to the next level.
Right. So, like, what? It's not all about money because
correct.
Texas A&M's got loads of money.
And they don't.
Why can't they put a consistent winner on the field of play?
They don't challenge for an SEC title right now.
Why? Exactly. So it can't all be about money. Like
it's more than that, but that's where it begins, it sounds like, for Mark Pope.
Yes. Success, yeah, it's definitely a factor, but it's not like the only thing.
Yeah.
Our question of the day, what do you think? Does BYU men's basketball success hinge on name, image, likeness, money, the ability to pay the players to come here, to stay here? When we're referencing Quest Glover, okay, for BYU's Royal Blue Collective and businesses that they associate with to be able to pay these players is that simple. Greg Rosenhan on X says 100% NIL is essential with basketball due to the small roster size.
Less room for error.
Okay. Unfortunately, some kids are chasing the money.
True.
BYU basketball needs to get to the place where they can bring in good athletes that don't care about NIL.
It's got to be a middle ground, I think, between, yes, BYU's raising more money, specifically for men's basketball, and you're still getting kids that care about NIL, but they will take less because, hey, I want to be at BYU, but also, like, I could go elsewhere and be a bench warmer on this team, or I could maybe be a starter at BYU.
What is the priority for the player? And for a player that hasn't known BYU, like Quest Glover, isn't grown up in like the BYU realm.
That's where the kid who's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints understands sort of what BYU is.
Yes.
I'm not saying BYU shouldn't recruit anyone who's not a member. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think the majority of kids on the team, generally, it's going to be easier to find that kid. But you need all kinds of great people coming in to make a roster. And we've seen that with the BYU roster the last couple of years. Great people from all walks of life is awesome.
Hashtag BYUSN on X, Facebook, and Instagram to join that conversation.
You can watch last night's After Further Review, where the crew breaks down players who can make an impact for BYU this season. John Nelson, Hinkler Rapati, and more. Watch it on demand on the BYUtv app.
Up next, following fall practice number 12, or training camp practice number 12, Jarom Jordan went one-on-one with Aaron Roderick to discuss what Keaton Slovis brings to the table and went position by position. How much have they really upgraded? This is BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Sports Nation is sponsored by Feastbox Global Grill, a unique dining experience featuring Texas, Hawaiian, and Korean meats. Time to feast.
Welcome to a partnership where customer experience comes first. It's our focus. It's your expectation. We provide support to those that go the extra mile for all of us. Supplying products, training, and service for generations. Learn more at bradyindustries.com.
Everyone loves going to the dentist, right? When was the last time you had your teeth cleaned? Heart disease, Alzheimer's, stroke, dementia, and other inflammatory health conditions can be linked to periodontitis, a severe stage of gum disease. To help fight against gum disease, have your teeth cleaned regularly by a dentist or hygienist. To review the science behind these findings, go to visityourdentist.org. Dental cleanings are essential for your health. This message is brought to you by the eAssist Dental Health Education Foundation.
Accidents don't just happen 9 to 5. They happen when you least expect them. The team at Siegfried & Jensen is here for you 24/7. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour. Really here for you. No matter when you call us, you'll speak to a real person and have access to the same expertise and personal attention as always, and get the legal help you need when you need it. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour, 24/7.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
7 seasons, 6 bowl appearances, 4 bowl wins, 2 top 25 finishes. BYU's head coach, Kalani Sitake, the heart of Cougar Nation. Join the studio audience for BYU football with Kalani Sitake, Tuesdays at 6:30 during the season at BYU Broadcasting. Get a chance to post questions or catch a post-show selfie with Coach. Sign up to attend at BYUSN.com. Now's your chance to feel the pulse of BYU football with Kalani Sitake.
Look up with the double pass here. Got a bevy of blockers in front of him. Oh, with a house call. Touchdown, Cougars.
We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Spencer Linton alongside Jarom Jordan. Very interesting trending topics today. If you missed that conversation about NIL money and BYU basketball and then BYU football upgrading at every position, you can always see that on demand. But
on offense.
On offense, yes. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. And that is...
We seek it on defense as well.
What we are going to look into now more with your one-on-one interview with
yes.
Aaron Roderick.
Talked to offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick yesterday. He's excited that BYU has a good team, he says, which is awesome. We're stoked. Let's get to know the position groups a little bit better after my conversation with BYU's offensive coordinator. All right, Aaron, third year at the helm here. How have you evolved as a play caller the last couple of years going into this season?
Well, I'm just always trying to get better. You know, we ask the players to get better. You know, you ask them to work all off season on, you know, and getting stronger in the weight room or getting better at certain techniques and skills. And so coaches have to do the same thing. So I've spent every off season doing everything I can to be a better coach, and I ask the same thing of all my assistants.
Can you watch football casually, or are you always kind of picking at, oh, I liked that, maybe I'll have that influence in my play calling?
Yeah, I can't watch it casually. Yeah, I'm always seeing I think all coaches are that way. You're just seeing the scheme of it, and you know, a lot of the best plays are borrowed and stolen. You know, so a lot of times I'm watching NFL preseason game and I see, oh, that fits us. That's something we do well, or you know, fits something we do well, and yeah, so that's just how it is.
Okay, let's walk through some of the positions. Obviously, Keaton Slovis at 1. Is Jake Retzloff the number 2 quarterback, or is that still a battle?
He's been taking number 2 reps, splitting the number 2 reps with Cade. Cade has been dealing with a little bit of minor deal that's held him back a little bit lately, and I feel like Jake's really done a nice job the last few practices. So that's not a final decision yet, but right now Cade's got Jake's had a few more reps lately. Yeah.
Running back, safe to say Aiden is the number 1, and then is there a battle for 2, or is that Deion Smith?
So Aiden's doing a great job. Deion Smith, that guy, man, what a good player he is. Very smart guy. We're doing a lot of things with him, and very impressed with just how smart he is and how mature he is. He's a great leader. And then LJ Martin is a standout in camp so far. He's one of the best players on this team, and he will play this year. You'll see he's a very good football player.
Getting LJ was incredible. I have an uncle who lives in El Paso and knows the family, and he is the #1 fan of LJ Martin here.
Yeah, I try not to get too excited about freshmen sometimes, but he's already proven that he's going to be a player for us this season.
That's exciting. Okay, wide receiver. You have 3 incumbent guys trying to stay healthy, 2 transfers that look to play into it, and then how big do you want that group to be in terms of what that rotation could look like?
Right now we have a 6-man rotation, so you have the 3 guys returning, Cody, Keanu, and Chase, and then Darius and Keelan Marion are the 2 transfers. They're both doing a very good job, and Parker Kingston has, he's only been playing wide receiver for 1 year because he was a high school quarterback, and he's right there in that group, as good as anybody in that group. He's a very good player, great speed, and so that's our 6 right now. And then we have a couple other guys, that are reliable that I think could fill in a game, play for us. Talmadge Gunther, Hobbs Nyberg, Dom Henry's had a really nice camp. I think he's knocking on the door there for a chance to play. I'm probably forgetting someone. Oh, and then JoJo doesn't exactly always know what he's doing yet, but super talented kid that has a really bright future.
Okay, tight end Isaac Rex, and then what's the battle like for number 2 and 3 there?
Ray Paulo has really stood out to me, and same with Tava, our transfer from SUU. Those 2 guys are both going to play a big role for us for sure. And then Mason Fakahua has done a nice job in camp as well. So those are the 4 main guys that are getting the most of the reps right now, and we have really upgraded at that position. Just Isaac's so much improved from a year ago, and the addition of Ray and Tava, those 2 guys are doing a great job. Very impressed with both of them. And Mason Fakahua is much, it was a position change for him last year, and now he actually looks comfortable at that position and is doing a nice job.
Okay, on the offensive line, certainly Kingsley at left tackle, and then it feels like there's some battles there. How's the Connor Pay, Paul Miley battle at center?
Well, the interesting thing about that is it's like the least of my worries right now, because we've been alternating them, and you never even notice which one's which. They're just both good, solid players, the veteran guys, very professional about it. And I think both of them would probably like to be the center, but neither one of them makes a big deal about it, and I honestly don't even notice in practice which one's in. I'm more concerned about other things because I just know those 2 guys are both going to do a great job for us no matter what they play.
And if one's the center, the other's probably a guard, right?
Correct, yeah. One of them will start at center, one will start at guard, and either way, one thing I've told both of them is you've both started so many games in your career at center that it's not a bad thing to play guard. Like you're just putting more games on tape of playing another position. So whichever one of them does it, it's not a negative at all.
Caleb Etienne seems to have been running with the most at right tackle to this point.
He's had the most reps there, yes, but we have rotated some other guys in. Simi and Braden Kime have both played right and left tackle, and both are doing a good job.
And then other guards that have come in, Tyler Little, Sonny Macassini, who else been in the mix?
I'd say Waylon. Waylon's probably he's been a factor in there, and Ian Fitzgerald had a very good scrimmage Saturday. So that'd be a couple guys, yeah.
You've been bullish on this O-line. Certainly they were incredible last year. What do you feel like is different about this group than last year's group?
I just think these guys are hungry, and first of all, they all seem really like they're having a lot of fun, and they're really appreciative to be here. We've got some transfers in that group, and it's been fun for me to see the transfers embrace our team culture, embrace BYU, Provo, and there's some new faces in there, but the energy that those guys bring every day is contagious. The other players on the team feel it and they feed off of it, and so that's been my favorite thing about those guys.
Each of the last 3 starting quarterbacks of BYU had their strengths, Zach and Jaron. What does Keaton do that's maybe a little different than what those 2 guys did?
Well, I don't think there's that much. There's a lot more in common than there are differences. He's not. I think it's no secret he's not the exact same runner that Zach was, or but he's a very accurate passer. He's a better runner than you think. He can run everything we've been doing for the last 2 years, but he can really throw it. And his decision making is outstanding, and I'm really happy he's here.
How much of, hey, this is our system, you fit into this, versus, okay, I see you can do this, I sort of add this into the play calling exists?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, football is definitely about creating matchups and finding ways to get the ball to your best players, doing what they do best. And I feel like, however, our offense allows for that. You know, we have a very diverse system. We can play in just about any personnel grouping you can think of. We have a lot of formations and shifts and motions and things we can do to create those matchups. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of each year finding out, okay, who are the guys? How do we get them the ball? Doing what they do best. And I think we're going to be hard to defend.
How many snaps could you give, this team September 2nd if needed?
So, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
How many snaps could you at receiver give this team if needed?
0. First rule of coaching is never demonstrate full speed, and I never do it. So, yeah, none.
Well, thanks for the time, and best of luck in the next couple weeks.
Nice to talk to you.
Never
0 snaps.
Oh, it's so good. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Oh, man. Okay, I'm excited about a couple of things you mentioned. LJ Martin, he's a player. He's proven he's going to be a player on this team. He's going to see time. We're going to see him. That's exciting. Then at tight end, it was pretty interesting, Spence. So it's Isaac Rex, obviously. And then Ray Paulo is a junior college transfer from Allen Hancock College, not to be confused with Hancock the movie, which was fun but not that good. He's better. And then you had Mataava Taese is an SUU transfer at tight end. These two guys are totally new.
Maybe the tight end group is the most upgraded.
Maybe. They've got to show us a little bit there. I think we've seen more out of the running backs. Like, we've seen Aiden Robbins get 1,000 yards, right?
Yeah.
And Deion Smith. Didn't have huge numbers, but he was Colorado's leading rusher in a Power 5 league, blah, blah, blah. Former Power 5 league. It is exciting to see some of these new guys who will have an impact this year.
For him to say LJ Martin is already one of the best football players on this team right now as a freshman.
Top 300 ESPN recruited.
And then qualified was saying, trying to get too excited about freshmen, but he's so good. He's going to play this year, and he's going to make an impact on our
love
team.
it, because we're going to see him against the Bearcats in how many days?
Countdown to the Bearcats.
17 days.
That's my favorite prime number. What's
17?
What's yours?
Your favorite prime number? My favorite prime number is probably 11.
11.
Yeah, because it's one of my favorite overall numbers.
43 is a pretty good one. David Nixon.
You and Chris Morris of the Utah Jazz.
Nice pull, dude. Although he missed a couple of threes in that game 5
Morris.
that cost him against the Rock. Anyway.
I can still hit Marv Albert.
95?
Yes.
After a Sweet 16 appearance last season, number 13 women's soccer regular season opener tomorrow night. Southfield against number 21 St. Louis at 9 Eastern on Big 12, now on ESPN+.
Chris Morris is on fire.
He wasn't in Game 5, 95, though.
What Big 12 news broke the internet? Or maybe didn't break the internet, but still, it's Big 12 news. You love the announcement of the announcement, Jarom.
It's my favorite thing.
This is BYU Sports Nation.
Please tease us more.
Yes!
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Meeting Max on Mutual was unexpected.
Hi, my name is Addie.
My name's Max. I'm going to school for nursing right now.
I studied early childhood special education, and I'm a teacher now.
Addie was up in Idaho, and I was living in Draper at the time.
My friends and I just came down to Utah for a weekend. We're just all like swiping on Mutual. Like straight up, if it was not for Mutual, like we would have not like have met.
We wouldn't have been able to like gone on a date had we not both been on Mutual that day at that time.
Follow BYU Sports Nation on social media for content throughout the day. Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads.
Welcome back to Studio B. I am Spencer. He is Jarom. Let's get to today's headlines.
BYU football has meetings and recovery today, but the day off as they practice, from practice as they prepare for Sam Houston on September 2nd. Here's Tyler Batty from yesterday's practice.
So against our offense, it's a little tricky. Our offense, we know our offense, right? They love, a little bit of misdirection, and so it's really good for us on the defensive side of the ball, having to go up against our offense every day. I definitely feel like it makes us better.
17 days to Sam Houston. BYU ranked number 51 as well in the final ESPN preseason SP Plus rankings. 10th out of the 14 Big 12 teams.
Hey, 10th is better than the 11th. They were picked to finish in the preseason coaches poll. Men's basketball news. The Cougars and Mark Pope have hired former player Nate Austin.
He's back, baby.
As the director of basketball operations. Of course, Nate, all-time fouls leader.
Yeah, games played. Let's leave with that, Spence. Come on, man.
The Iron Man.
Didn't make the graphic.
We love Nate. Served at Salt Lake Community College as an assistant coach since May. Now he's back in Provo, where he belongs. He loves BYU. Also, we mentioned at the top of the show, Quez Glover has committed to Kansas State. So he leaves BYU stating NIL concerns and gets a $200,000 paycheck to be a bench player at Kansas State. We will see Quez Glover later this year.
Reportedly $200K from
Robbie McCombs was the one that reported the $200K, yes.
Women's volleyball ranked number 17 in the AVCA preseason poll, joining top-ranked Texas, 15th ranked Baylor, 19th ranked Houston. Remember, BYU picked to finish second in the league. Cougars open the season with 5th ranked Pitt coming up next weekend.
Jamie Shepard of BYU Women's Soccer has been named the United Soccer Coaches Players to Watch list.
Okay.
7 goals, 5 assists, started all 21 games. She is an all Big 12 preseason team selection for 2023.
Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark told the Marchand and Oron Sports Media podcast the Big 12's done expanding, and talks with Gonzaga and UConn have stopped because, quote, we had a strategy and effectively we've been able to execute.
I'd say that and then some. Michael Rucker, as we move into the major leagues, was recalled by the Chicago Cubs from AAA Iowa. This is his 3rd stint in the show with the Cubs this season. In 34 appearances, he's 2-1 with a 5.0 at the earned run average, 17 walks, 39 strikeouts.
BYU men's volleyball team is in the MPSF, Mountain Pacific Sports Federation. Yesterday, the league announced it is adding 2 teams to men's volleyball in 2025.
Expansion?
What? Menlo and Vanguard transitioning from NAIA to Division II. They will put the league up to 9 teams in 2 seasons from there.
Menlo?
Yep.
Okay. Got to figure where Menlo is. Cougar kickoff for those local to Provo, Utah, or somewhere in the northern part of Utah. They'll want to attend tonight, meet some of the players and athletes, get autographs and whatnot. 6 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time at the Student Athlete Building practice fields. Those are today's headlines. Let's whip it. The Cougar Whip Around, presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark says the league's done expanding, isn't talking to UConn and Gonzaga anymore. Is this the right move?
Yes. Until there's some sort of fallout with the ACC, then the Big 12 should probably just stay put.
The TV contracts don't dictate that they can prorata full amounts for non-Power 5 teams.
That too.
So why would you add these teams at this point?
No.
You were only maybe going to add them if you didn't add the ones you did, I think. And they were, I think, going for Oregon and Washington initially, but that didn't happen.
For sure. Yes, the stand pat at 16. We'll see what happens with the ACC.
Yep.
Yesterday, the Big 12 tweeted, big news would break today. And that news, Jarom, is an announcement that Nelly, famous R&B artist, rapper, is going to perform the halftime show at the Big 12 Championship game. What do you think of the big news?
No, I'm not a huge fan of teasing announcements. I say you just announce it because it's hard to meet or exceed what people think it could be.
Yes.
And people were thinking expansion probably again. Nelly's pretty cool, though. Nelly was a fan of one Jimmer Fredette when Jimmer was playing. So we've always sort of liked Nelly here at BYU because he loved Jimmer, too. It's getting hot in here, man.
It is getting hot in here. And we'll stop it right there.
Pause.
Up next, Amin of Fox Sports, longtime friend of the program and just an amazing human being overall, joins the show to discuss Cougars in the NFL because he's going to call a bunch of their games this season on Fox Sports. This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
Celebrate rewardflation at Mountain America. Get double rewards on every purchase with your Mountain America Rewards credit card to help with fuelflation, foodflation, and phytoflation. And on top of double rewards, every time you use your card, you'll be entered in Mountain America's smartphone giveaway. Details at macu.com/double. Double your rewards today.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
If you're looking to build your brand awareness and increase market share as BYU moves into the Big 12, this is the place, BYU Athletics. We can provide the tools you need to make sure your company is seen and heard. BYU Athletics is where you can align your products and services with loyal fans that cheer for our Cougars. And they can also help your business win. Learn more about what a partnership with BYU Athletics and your company will look like. After all, this is the place. Email sponsorship at byu.edu today.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. Our friend of the program, Amin, we've known him for a long time, calls a lot of games on Fox with MLB, NFL, Chicago Bulls, TV play-by-play. He's been doing games for a long time. He's been covering the Cougs. We wish he was still calling college football, but now he calls a lot of Cougs in the NFL. I spoke with Adam earlier this morning, mostly about that. Adam, welcome back to the program. It's good to see you. You look comfortable in your plaid shirt here today.
It's very comfortable. I'm going to go chop down a tree in a little bit.
Well, thanks for joining us. Lots to discuss, especially in your world. You used to call, BYU games all the time. Listen, now you're big time, man. It's been fun to see you, catch up with you doing the Bulls games, obviously, as a Chicago guy, and then the NFL and MLB on Fox, USA Basketball with Bill Raftery. How you staying busy these days? Seems like a lot's going on.
Yeah, no, it's been good. We've had this nice little fun run with USA Basketball the last probably week and a half, and we got another one coming up on Friday with USA and Greece, the Sans Giannis Greece roster as he's kind of recovering from his knee issue. But the U.S. looks good on their run up to the FIBA World Cup, which starts at the end of the month, and then I'm in the midst of Bears preseason games, Chicago Bears NFL preseason games, getting ready for the Colts on Saturday, so that'll be exciting to see a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson. And then I think it's crazy to think that right around the corner we've got Major League Baseball playoffs, maybe a month plus away, and we'll do the stretch run of the regular season before we get set for the American League Division Series. And the NFL starts in, I think it's 3 weeks, or I'm traveling in about 3 weeks for it, so 3.5 weeks away from the start of the NFL season. So it's all coming up fast, and summer's basically over, my friend. So we're getting ready for it.
Yeah, I got one little vacation left, and then we're digging in. But yeah, connections all over the place with BYU, I suppose. Eric Meek on the Selects team, kind of helping that USA team get ready, which has been cool. They tweeted out a nice article yesterday. And then Cougars, obviously, in the pros in the NFL. And let's talk about a couple of those guys that you cover almost week to week, some Cougar in some fashion. Fred Warner's emergence from a 4-9 BYU team a senior year to best middle linebacker in football has been wild. What have you noticed of his development in the NFL to become perhaps the best middle linebacker in the game.
Yeah, I remember talking to Kyle Shanahan about this several times. He's covered a lot of 49er games over the years, and obviously they've been, a very productive NFC team, making, some deep playoff runs, getting to the Super Bowl. And not only just